So we've created a basic slideshow. I now want to demonstrate some of the features of PTE AV Studio, and one of the things that we talked about right at the beginning is trying to make all of our images in the landscape format, but that often there are occasions where we need to use a portrait style image and to use it in our slideshow. So I've created a new AV slideshow effectively, which I've called Picture in Picture, and I'm in my Picture in Picture folder here in my tutorials. Just see that it's in my PTE AV 10 Studio tutorials, and what I'm going to do is to bring down this image here, and there's a feature I want to show you because we're going to be using objects and animations regularly, backwards and forwards, to make adjustments, to add images, to add text, various things. And we've been using the button on the bottom toolbar up to the present time. Let me show you an easier way, and I'm going to go to Settings, Preferences, and under the System tab we have at the top here what happens if we double click in the slide list. Now there are three options: show the slide properties window, show the slide style window, or show objects and animations editor, and that's the one that we're going to choose. And I'm saying OK. Now rather than having to go to the button at the bottom, all we need to do on any images that we want to manipulate, add to, whatever we're doing in objects and animations, we just simply double click and we're open in objects and animations. Now I'm going to left click on the outside here, and I'm going to introduce a portrait style image. At the top here, this section is where we can add video, we can add masks, we can add various things like frames and buttons and text, rectangles, but we're going to add another image, and that's in my PTE Studio 10 tutorials, Picture in Picture, and it's this red squirrel on a post. And I'm going to open that image. And PTE has filled the frame top to bottom with this particular image, and I don't think that's ideal for what we want. Essentially we want some area around the image itself, so I'm going to the zoom feature here, dragging to the left and taking it down to I think 90%. Yes, I think that looks okay, and I think that places it better within the image. However, the background image is competing with what we want the viewer to look at, and so I've selected the background image, and if I go to blur, if I drag left, I'll sharpen the image. As you can see, if I take it to the right, I can blur the image so that it's a suitable background, but there's nothing really that's discernible there. And if I take it down, well, it's at 47% on this image. That looks about okay. But what you may notice is that we're getting some vignetting around the outside of the image, and we can remove that by, let's take the zoom to 105%. I've done it that way so that should we do more than one image, picture in picture, on this background, we can always take the background to 105% and remember that our blur is 47. In fact, I'm going to make it 45. It's more memorable than 47. So for future images in this slideshow, we'll have them at 105%. This is the background we're talking about, with 45% blur. And I think I'm going to take the opacity down just a touch, probably 10% on this image. It depends on the image itself, and you need to do that by simply looking at the image and looking at the effect that you've got there. And I think that looks quite reasonable. So back to our squirrel. Well, in properties, I think I'm going to add a drop shadow. Do I want to customize that shadow? Let's have a look. I could customize it, give a more positive shadow, 100% in opacity. This is the one that I tend to use for text as well, and I think this might be just a little bit too much for the image. Yeah, I'm going to leave those at about 17 and 16, and again this is a personal choice, and I think we're okay with that, so I'll say okay. Now at one time I would have suggested that a border around the image was unnecessary, but I'm coming round to the way of thinking that it might be an idea just to put a border around here to physically separate it from the background. So I'm going to the border selection here and I'm using pixels. It's either pixels or percentage. I'm using pixels. Click into there and let's say 5 pixels. That might be a wee bit large. Let's make it 3 pixels. We don't want a white border because the eye on any image is always drawn to the lightest part of the image and it detracts our eye from looking at this squirrel. So what we need to do is select the colour there and go to a grey colour. And I think that might be too dark. Let's just have a look anyway. So I'll say OK, deselect. Actually, that's not too bad. It does define the edge of the image. Let's just have a look at what happens if we change that to the lighter grey. That's that one. OK. Just deselect to get rid of the bounding box. Yes, I think that probably is that wee bit better. So what we've done here is we've used the portrait style image in a landscape background. And so when we show our slideshow, the whole of the screen is full of image, the background and the image that we want people to look at. So that's our picture in picture, and it's how we can utilize the feature of portrait style images into a landscape background. We're going to have a look at another way of doing this, or should I say another idea where we can put multiple pictures into a picture, and that will be our next session.